Hey everybody, Fred Minnick here. I've been covering American whiskey for 16 years, since 2006, and there has been a theme during that time frame. What is value bourbon? Value bourbon has changed from like $10 to 15 to 20 to 30, where to now I can actually make an argument that a $60 bourbon, as long as it's available everywhere, is a value bourbon. And I gotta tell you, it's getting a little pricey out there, but you can still find bourbon for 20 bucks and under. Now, this is a tier of bourbon that's typically below 90 proof. So you'll see a lot of bourbons out there, like very Old Barton, Benchmark, that are 86, 80 proof. And it's a sea of not your typical 100 proofers, but the list I have for you today has some meat on the bone. There are some 100 proof bourbons on this list, and one of them is so good that it has beaten some bourbons 4 times its price in blind tastings. But let's get to this list, shall we? Here we go. At number 8, Jim Beam White Label. I know what you're thinking. Jim Beam's everywhere. It's a common brand, but it is under $20. And when I'm at a baseball game, I see Jim Beam at a lot of places. And you know what? In a pinch, it works just fine. The prominent note there on a Jim Beam is a little cornbread, but you throw some ice in there, and then it becomes like, well, it's drinking time. But if you want to sip it by itself, I think don't add water, don't add ice. I actually have done a lot of blind tastings with Jim Beam, and they've done quite well. In fact, one of the rapid age companies a long time ago set me down and put Jim Beam, Woodford, and a couple other things in with all of their rapid age products, and Jim Beam came out number 1. So a lot of those rapid age products out there, they're not better than Jim Beam, and it's a great pour for usually between $10 and $15. Some markets, depending on the taxes, you got to remember, a lot of the pricing in your market is dependent upon your state's taxes or your country's taxes. But for the most part, you should be able to find Jim Beam White Label under $20. At number 7, it is a bourbon. Jack Daniels. I dare say Jack Daniels is probably the most difficult thing to make consistently, because they have so many pieces going into it. You got the charcoal mellowing prior to it going into a barrel, and they have to maintain a consistency on such a wide spread of things. I mean, they have to make a lot of whiskey. They're the world's #1 selling whiskey. They are the most counterfeited whiskey, an American whiskey that is, and it is just, to me, a really great under $20 pour that is, to me, it is the quintessential pour with Coca-Cola. I will take Jack and Coke over pretty much everything with Coca-Cola. And there are times that I want a Jack and Coke, and there's nothing wrong with that if you like that too. But if you're drinking it neat, or even add a cube of ice, the most prominent note that you will get there is going to be banana, because of the yeast they use and their fermentation techniques there at Jack Daniels. They basically get a big giant helping of banana. So if you're a fan of banana nut bread or a raw banana or banana pudding, you're not going to find a better pour for yourself under $20 than Jack Daniels. At number 6, very Old Barton. Now, the last 3 products that we've had have all been 80 proof. So Jim Beam 80 proof, Jack Daniels 80 proof, and the most widely distributed very Old Barton 80 proof. You will find other proof points of very Old Barton in Kentucky, but they're not as widely as distributed as the 80 proof. Here's the thing about very Old Barton. It's sneaky good. It is really sneaky good. Like, you could find like a lot of flavors in that, depending on like what year. There's a lot of very Old Barton out there in circulation. So you may actually go to your local liquor store and find a bottle of very Old Barton that's from 2012. People just overlook it. And so it is one of those where, and they haven't changed the label or anything. It's just the same little, squatty, voluptuous bottle. And the whiskey in it, is very good. It's coming out of Barton, which is 1792. So think of this as like a precursor to becoming 1792. This bottle is usually around $10 to $12. In some markets, you might even find it for $8. So if you're on an extreme budget, very Old Barton is a fantastic pour. And I do think that the best way to sip it is with neat. But in my home, we use it for our batch cocktailing. So very Old Barton is a preferred mixer in my home for batch cocktails. The most prominent note you're going to get there with very Old Barton, that's a tough one for me because there's a few different ones there. But I'm gonna say a piece of toast, like a nice piece of toast, a little butter over it, so you get some like bready notes, but it's still got a little creaminess to it. So very Old Barton coming in at number 6. At number 5, Old Forester 86 proof. Old Forester 86 proof is pretty darn tasty. Now, this is a very good 4-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon, distilled in Louisville and aged in heat-cycled warehouses. It tends to have a banana note. It's a common theme in Brown-Forman products, but it has a really prominent banana note. You can find this for $12, $15. It's also a favorite of bartenders to put in the well. So when you go to Chicago or New York and you ask what's their well bourbon, a lot of times it's Old Forester 86 proof. It's got just enough proof points, to outmeasure those 80-point bourbons, and so stands up a little better in a cocktail, and the flavors are really pronounced. And like I said, that banana note is there. Some other notes to look for when you're tasting Old Forester 86 proof: cherry. I always get a little hint of cherry in there. So you're not going to break the bank with this one. It's quite tasty, and it is a bartender's preference in the well. So at number 5, Old Forester. At number 4, Evan Williams Black Label. So a long time ago, a handful of us whiskey writers came out and said, until craft whiskey is better than Evan Williams Black Label, it's not going to make it. And so Evan Williams Black Label, for a lot of us professional tasters, is the standard of entry for bourbon. And the fact is, it is really good. The composite in there is 4 to 6 years old of Heaven Hill whiskey, and that whiskey is it's a large dump. So they have a lot of barrels going into these batches, but it's always very consistent. I would say that Evan Williams is probably the most fantastically consistent Kentucky bourbon on the market. And that is hard to do. It is hard to get a bottle to taste the same today as it was 10 years ago. It's just, your needs for the barrels change, the ingredients change, but it's so different. And I drank it neat. I actually like Evan Williams Black Label with fried chicken because it has like a fried, kind of like fried crispy component to it that tastes, the fried chicken has a nice fried crispy component to it that to me pairs very nicely with Evan Williams Black Label. And I also used to do that with Henry McKenna. So I think the Heaven Hill style of bourbon is just really good with fried chicken. And sign me up for some Nashville hot fried chicken right now. That sounds so good. Do you have a favorite Nashville fried hot chicken place? Put it in the comment section. I want to go to it and gain 5 pounds and probably have way too many peppers because I like hot chicken. So I want to know what your favorite Nashville hot chicken is. All right, so I digress. Number 4, Evan Williams Black Label. The most prominent note there for me is like a fried piece of bread. Pairs nicely with fried chicken. At number 3, Old Forester 100 proof. You learned about Old Forester 86 proof earlier, but this is the 100 proof. Now, they used to call this Old Forester Signature. They rebranded it to 100 proof, a couple years ago. Why distillers do this, I don't know. They're always like, they have like 15 MBAs in a room say, why aren't our sales better than this brand over here? And then someone over here, pats their chin thusly and say, I know what we need to do. We need to change the brand name from Signature to 100 proof. Yes, that will bring us to the next level. And who knows, maybe they were right, because it's in a lot of bars across Kentucky. In fact, you can't really call yourself a bourbon bar unless you have Old Forester 100 proof. There are people who would prefer to drink that over Pappy Van Winkle. So the legion of fans for that one bottle, Old Forester 100 proof, to me, outweighs everything else on this list. That particular bottle has an enormous following. And you know what? It does really, really well in blind tastings. So what's the most prominent note there? For me, it's a fried cherry pie. Like if you went to McDonald's, you get that nice hot fried cherry pie. As long as it didn't melt your hand off and, scold your face as you put it in your mouth, that's the note I'm talking about. If you ever had that as a kid, mwah, chef's kiss. So at number 3, Old Forester 100 proof. At number 2, and probably going to draw a lot of hate from those who seek this bottle out, JTS Brown 100 proof bottled and bond. Now, this one's not as widely available as everything else on the list. It is very prominently available in Kentucky, but you will find it at Bevmo. You can find it at Benny's in Chicago. How do I know? Because I've walked in those stores and I've seen them there. So if you go into a store and they say they can't get it through distribution, however they get them in those markets, I don't know. All I know is all the prominent bourbon liquor stores I've gone to, they have JTS Brown. And put in the comment section if JTS Brown 100 proof bottled to bond is in your market. I would be curious to know. Now, this is a really good bourbon for under $20, but Heaven Hill puts literally no marketing into it. They just put it on the shelf, and Heaven Hill has a tendency to have find these little nuggets of value, take them off the shelf, rebrand them, and put them back on the shelf after dumping a bunch of marketing and MBA discussions about changing the bottle and everything. We've seen that with Old Fitzgerald, the creation of Larceny, Heaven Hill, and now, coming up, Evan Williams single barrel. So I imagine JTS Brown is probably going to get reworked by Heaven Hill at some point in the next 10 years, because there's enough of us who love it, and I probably really shouldn't talk about it, but you know what? I'm creating a list for those of you all who are getting into bourbon, wanting to find some value here. Right now, JTS Brown, bottled and bond, is an enormous value, and it's under $20 in every liquor store I've seen it in, and you can find it online at various places as well. Now, what's the prominent note here? I would say that there's a few here, but kind of there's a nice Nutella note I get in the JTS Brown bottled and bond. So if you are on the hunt for something that's of great value, JTS Brown bottled and bond at number 2. At number 1, Evan Williams bottled and bond. Bottled and bond, Evan Williams, and the most important thing is it's available nationally. And if it's not available nationally, things have changed since I last checked. But this right here was my best everyday bourbon a couple years ago, and it defeated a lot of major brands in a blind tasting. When I increased the price range to include Old Forester 1920, which is a $60 bourbon, which that won my best everyday bourbon. Evan Williams Bottled and Bond almost beat that particular bourbon. And it's just, frankly, for the money, you cannot beat this. This for the money, under $20. In some markets, you will find it over $20. And that's, again, it's all about taxes. It's all about the, you know, what that liquor store has and what kind of money they need to make and what the distributors are doing in terms of their case sales. But for the most part, Evan Williams bottled and bond across the United States of America is under $20. Where it is in foreign markets, I don't know. But here in Kentucky, you can come in, get a case, and not spend a ton of money. There's also Heaven Hill bottled and bond, and this is very close to JTS Brown bottled and bond and JW Dant bottled and bond. But the best bottled and bond in the Heaven Hill portfolio, under $20, in my opinion, is Evan Williams bottled and bond. Now, that being said, that's my list. And the most prominent note that I have gotten over the years with Evan Williams bottled and bond, it is kind of like a little grain note, almost like a corn tortilla, but think of like a little honey butter, like a sopapilla, Who doesn't like a good sopapilla? So that is my list for the best bourbons under $20. Now, if you want to go to that next level, to that $25 to $30 price point, these days you're looking at Bulleit, Elijah Craig, Wild Turkey, but who knows how long that's going to stay the same, given how much things are changing in pricing. Today, what is available and what is considered an everyday bourbon is much different than when I first started covering this amazing industry. But you can still find great pours for under 20 bucks. And this right here, in my opinion, is the best of them all. So that's my list for best bourbons under $20. Now, you can spend a lot more money out there if you're on a budget. The Evan Williams bottled and bond, in my opinion, is going to outtaste things that are $60, even $80, and darn near will outtaste like a 10-year-old, some of the 10-year-old source products. Like, this is really great bang for your buck. And you don't have to spend a lot of money in bourbon to find great bang for your buck. Now, this isn't a sexy bottle. This doesn't come with a cork or any kind of like FOMO around it. But you know what? You don't need to think of others as you're sipping what's in here, because it is good. Now, that's going to do it for this list, and this is what I believe is the best bourbon under $20. If you agree with that, put it in the comment section. If you disagree with that, put it in the comment section. Also, I've got other lists coming up. If you have an idea for a list, put it in the comment section. Maybe I'll produce it as a video. In addition, click that subscribe button, click that like button. It helps people find this channel. And we are a small but mighty growing channel. And thank you for tuning in. Also, check out my books. Go to fredminnick.com to join my free newsletter where you can learn about my barrel picks. Cheers, everybody. Vodka sucks. Damn. That's so much better than $20. That sopapilla note, honey, it's good. See ya.